Hey all, this is Chase from the All Blue Crew. Today we're going to be looking at my Doflamingo list from OPO7 here, much requested by some of the audience here. Let's go ahead and talk about the leader. He is a 5,000 power, 5 life leader. When you attach 2 Dawn to him and attack, you can pay 1 Dawn and then look at the top card of your deck. If it's the 7 Warlords of the Sea type character, you can put it into play if it has a cost of 4 or less and it enters play rested. This is a very aggressive deck. It's getting support with the starter deck that comes out. It already got support with OPO7 and EBO1. The starter deck that comes out in October is going to give it more support as well. So a great thing to start investing in. Let's go ahead and look at the list here. We go ahead and run 12 2Ks. 2Ks are all going to be 7 Warlords type, so they can come into play off of Doflamingo. If we do put this Draco Mihawk into play from starter deck 03, he does allow you to draw 2, discard 2 when you attach 1 Dawn to him. This is not a May ability, so definitely keep track of when you do it and based on what you know what's on top of your deck, because it could end up messing up your math a little bit. But he is a great way to cycle out bad cards from your hand, look for good cards, look for removal, yada yada. Next we've got the 2K from OPO7. This is the rare Trafalgar Law. Not a card I'll typically play out, though. If you do play him out and bounce him back to your hand, he will bottom deck a card from your opponent's hand if they have 6 cards or less. But because he's a 4,000 power card, he's not typically something I'm going to want to commit Dawn to and attack with. So it's just going to stay in hand more so as a 2K. Then finally, we've got Crocodile. Crocodile's another 5,000. He's from OPO7. He does allow you to bounce something that costs 2 or less by paying 1 Dawn when he enters. If I wanted to return, say, my Perona to hand to search top 5 again, I could definitely do that. That's kind of the utility for that. Otherwise, I'll just put it into play and it'll be a nice attacker. Moving on, we've got the utility of the deck. The 2 best cards for the deck, one being Perona, the other one being Doflamingo. Perona and Doflamingo both have the same effect, allowing you to look at the top 5 of your deck, rearrange, or bottom it, allowing you to set up your leader's ability to be able to rip things off the top and put them directly into play. Perona does it at 1 Dawn, really great on the curve if you're going first, so you can play her on turn 1, and then on the 3 Dawn turn, you can attach 2 to lead and swing and get the effect. Doflamingo is a nice alternative as well if you want to play it later, like on your 3 Dawn turn. If you don't find Perona, it does slow you down a little bit, but it is a blocker to make up for it. So this is the only blocker in the deck, so definitely could be pretty important in some matchups. Next, we've got probably one of the best cards that can swing a game, and that's Pudding. Charlotte Pudding from OPO6 allows you to shuffle your opponent's hand, and they shuffle their hand to their deck and then draw 5 cards. So if they've got a very large hand, if they're a Black Yellow Luffy, if they're an L, even the mirrors for this deck, or Bonnie, this can make or break your game. So this is why I run 4 of them. This card is so good in some matchups, and it's not so good in other matchups. And in some matchups, it's just a 1K. In other matchups, it could turn the favor towards you if you play it. Next, we've got the hittables, right? So things you typically want to hit. Now the 2Ks are all hittable, but these are the ones you want to hit the most. These are Jinbei here. Jinbei being the best card, honestly, in the deck, in my opinion. He comes into play and he lets you play another 7 Warlords type character with a cost of 4 or less from your hand and put it directly into play active. So it's kind of a repeat of this ability. So you could swing with lead, you could put this into play tapped, and then put something else into play from your hand. Just really strong, allows you to kind of dominate the board and build a board presence really quickly to survive, removal, stuff like that. Then we got Weevil, which is another great target off of Doflamingo. Number 1, because he draws you a card when he comes in, and he's a 6,000 power threat. So just he replaces himself in just a really good threat. Then finally, we've got the Gecko Moria. Gecko Moria allows you to buy back a 4 cost or less 7 Warlords other than Moria. So if I use a 2K early, I can use this to buy back a 2K. I can use this to buy back a Jinbei, yada yada yada. Continue the chain. Then we've got a 1 of Gecko Moria here. This is just a vanilla 6,000 power 1K counter. Use it as a 1K. I could also just put it directly into play, just to have more 6Ks, right? Because we can turn those 6Ks into 7Ks with just 1 Dawn, and that is very aggressive towards our opponent. Then on the high drop side, we run 3 Boas. Boa is a great card because it allows you to establish some tempo. It stops your opponent's one of your opponent's characters from attacking for the turn. So you play it against black, you could stop a Gecko Moria from attacking. It's also a big beater. It's an 8K, right? 8K hits pretty hard, requires at least 2 2Ks from your opponent's hand to get out of it. Really great stats on this card. Second ability of bottom decking, something not as relevant for this deck, but relevant more so for the Boa deck. This card is great because I like to put this card into play with the Sanjis. I run 2 of the 9-cost Sanjis. This is the secret rare from OPO6. On play, he reveals the top card of your deck. If it's a 9 cost or less that's not Sanji, he puts it directly into play. So the dream is stacking your deck to allow Sanji to put a bow into play. Total, that's 17,000 power. Very, very strong. So this is why I run these. I also run one Kaido. This is the draw Kaido from OPO5. If your opponent's at 3 or less life, you draw 4 cards. This is great in situations where you can play them out and you aren't instantly threatened. This is a way for you to potentially continue your advantage into the game. So if you're running low on resources because you're trying to save things and you've got still a pretty full board, you can play out Kaido and kind of maintain your aggression here. Typically wouldn't play it in a situation where you're already losing, just because those 4 cards are just going to come in your hand and then immediately go out of your hand, and not as great in that situation. But that's why I only run one, because there are scenarios where he's good in, but there are a lot of scenarios where he's not good in. Then finally, to round out the deck are the events here. We run 3 Gravity Blades. Just absolute best card in the blue decks. It bottom decks 2/6 costs. Even though red purple law is going to be leaving the meta here soon, really great right now in OPO7. It's great against other blue decks. It's great against, it can be good against black decks as well. Bottom decking their Lucci's, bottom decking the Rebecca's, so they can't keep getting the value of bringing them back from the yard with Gecko Moria. It also has a nice trigger that can bottom deck a 5 cost or less. So really great when they just swing into you and you bottom deck one of their things. Another great card is Gum Gum Red Rock, but lets you bottom deck any character. So your opponent's Gecko Morias, their Ishos, the 8 cost kid, all of that stuff, it's just gone. Zoro, gone. So you don't have to worry about it. So it also has a trigger to bottom deck a 4 or less. Then finally, to round out the 2 tech cards, we run a Gum Gum Rock. There's a bit of non-counter in my top end, right? Some of the cards I have, like Weevil, Boas, Sanji's, yada yada, don't have any counter. So we want one way to potentially get those out of hand, countering up to 8k, and that's what this one is for. And then for those matchups that just go heavy on the blockers, I'm looking at you, Black Yellow Luffy. Perfume Fever gives your character or your leader that has the 7 Warlords type 2,000 power, and then it cannot be blocked by a blocker during this combat. So just a nice way to surprise people and win games really fast. With that in mind, that is the list. Real quick recommendation on what it's good against. It's good against Red Purple Law. It's pretty decent against Black Yellow Luffy, especially if you find these events here to bottom deck their Sabos and their Aces and Luffy's. And then this is great against it as well. Pretty decent into Bonnie. Doesn't really do well into black decks, though black decks are about to get a little bit of a gut when it loses the stage, right? Any's lobby, Lucci does. This deck is going to be better against it, so definitely a potential contender for OPO8. And then it's going to get even better into when the starter deck comes out halfway through OPO8.